Michele Bachmann is a psychotic Republican congresswoman from Minnesota's 6th Congressional District who enjoyed a brief tenure as the religious rights pin-up girl following the implosions of Sarah Palin and Christine O'Donnell. She ran for president in 2012 and briefly led the polls in Iowa, where she lived as a girl. On August the 13th, she won the Ames straw poll, narrowly beating Ron Paul and showcasing her strength in the 1st caucus state. For a while, some Americans thought that she could beat Mitt Romney to the Republican nomination. She dropped out after a dismal showing in the Iowa caucus. Despite her relatively short political career, Bachmann has established herself as a unique brand in American politics, mostly due to her scary ability to immediately occupy an utterly extremist position on any given issue. Bachmann is a dyed-in-the-wool fundamentalist who frequently claims that she's acting on direct orders from God himself. She got her law degree from a tiny Christian university that specializes in teaching the law from a biblical worldview and would like its students to become change agents for bringing the law in line with Christian morality. She worked as a research assistant for notable Dominionist John Ives Moe and helped him produce a book that argued for turning the United States into a theocracy. Bachmann and other Republicans have been praying for the failure of Obama's health care reform, and she is fighting in practical ways to try and get it repealed. Americans on the religious right teach that denying health care to impoverished sick people is doing the will of sweet Jesus, that Christians outside the United States may struggle to understand that doctrine. It might also be connected to the fact that high-income earners who don't want to pay taxes are the backbone of the Republican Party. In addition, she has also jumped on Rick Perry for permitting mandatory vaccinations against HPV. Interestingly, Bachmann used to be an attorney in the Justice Department's tax division, representing the IRS for several years. In other words, one of the people most of her current Tea Party fans would probably consider evil incarnate. Nowadays, she compares taxation to slavery. Like any good Republican, she's also in favor of minimal government intrusion into citizens' lives, unless it is for a noble cause like correcting people's deviant sexual behavior, of course. Despite her free market stance and opposition to federal assistance to, well, anybody, she has banked over $250,000 in farm subsidies. A counseling agency that she runs together with her husband also received $27,000 in state funds since 2007 for the treatment of low-income patients. Since the agency in question is overtly Christian, it is questionable whether they separate their professional care from proselytizing. Marcus Bachmann is on record saying one should not ask confused people how they feel, but rather employ fundamentalist Christianity as a guiding principle and call sin, sin. He'd also have parents exorcise their kids' gayness through discipline. Still, it's nice to know Bachmann doesn't have to look too far for someone who specializes in mental health issues. Bachmann seems to believe in a homosexual agenda to target and encourage young children to be gay, and thinks the Lion King is part of that conspiracy. She thinks her lesbian stepsister's lifestyle is part of Satan. Fighting same-sex marriage has been her top legislative priority, both in the Minnesota State Senate and the House of Representatives. Notably, she campaigned to amend the Minnesota Constitution to outlaw same-sex marriage despite the fact that the state had already passed a law prohibiting it. She does all that on the very best authority because God told her personally that he does not like gays. When a group of gay rights activists held a rally against her plan in front of the state capitol, she took it on herself to spy on them, hiding behind some bushes. In a 2005 incident, a couple of lesbians attempted to talk to her in the bathroom after a campaign event and the police were called in after Bachmann screamed that she was being held against my will. Her husband claims that his counseling clinic, Bachmann and Associates, can cure gayness, while publicly denying that it engages in reparative therapy. Bachmann first rose to nationwide prominence in the run-up to the 2008 election, when she called on the media to take up Joe McCarthy's work of investigating anti-American leanings among candidates. She has also announced that she refuses to fill out 2010 census forms for her family, and has encouraged her supporters to likewise refuse. 2. The fact that this might result in Minnesota being undercounted and thus maybe losing a seat or two in Congress has not occurred to her, but has occurred to some others in the GOP. Her reasoning is that the census will be used to set up the FEMA concentration camps everyone knows are coming in 2011, all of this despite the fact that a census is specifically called for in the sacred text. The other sacred text. In Minnesota, she prevented preschool education despite scientific evidence that it works. Apparently, teaching children the Bible and Christian values is more important than getting them a start in life that reduces crime and drug abuse, improves overall educational achievement and earnings. Regarding the Founding Fathers and the United States Constitution, we also know that the very founders that wrote those documents worked tirelessly until slavery was no more in the United States. When called out on it, rather than admit her mistake, she doubled down by stating that John Q. Adams was a founding father and fought tirelessly to end slavery during the Revolutionary War era, despite the fact that he was 9 at the time of America's founding. While John Q. Adams did eventually emerge as a major figure in the abolitionist movement, that did not happen before the 1820s. Calvin Coolidge got us out of a depression while FDR started the Great Depression by passing the Hoots-Smalley tariff. The American Revolution started in New Hampshire, not Massachusetts. Silly historians. The Soviet Union still exists. When called out on it, rather than admit her mistake, she doubled down by stating that John Q. Adams was a founding father and fought tirelessly to end slavery during the